Hello and welcome to Geek Church, the internet's original online Bible study show. Pretty sure that's accurate. I did a whole intro once to talk about that. Like back in 2010, I don't think anyone, I think there are plenty of churches and pastors putting out sermons on the internet, but I don't think anyone had a show contextualized to like the internet, the way the internet works, right?
That's right.
I think I might be the first one. So
We'll say you are.
Yeah, as far as I know, I am. And I said, like, hey, if I'm wrong, if someone tells me, I'll stop saying it. But until then, it's true. Until I'm told otherwise, right? So I'm super excited to have a guest. You know what? I've been dying to just sit in the corner of the couch again. It feels weird sitting in the middle. And I'm like, where's Jeff? I need Jeff so I can have my armrest. I can have someone else to talk so I can take a drink. Speaking of which, let me christen the episode. All right? And I'm like, it's just weird. Just doing it on my own. So you've seen on the Thursday episodes, I've started using the table, switch it up a little bit. But I'm very excited to announce that I have a guest host today. I'll let you introduce yourself. I always let Jeff introduce himself.
I'm Chris.
You might need to speak up a little bit for it. Yeah.
What kind of microphones we got here?
Well, I normally have a lapel, but there's two of us, so I'm using the shotgun mic.
I'm Chris.
There we go. That's a good volume. And today we're doing I hope you like the Thor quick take. We're doing a Lightyear quick take. And basically it was going to be like, well, if we do a full episode, it's going to take us like 3 hours, and we don't have 3 hours. So let's just do a quick take first, and then maybe later we can get together and do like a full episode. Plus, they threw us a little bit in the movie. Like, we thought we knew what we were expecting. I literally had all my notes ready to go with all my scriptures. Like, I know what's going to be in this movie. And they threw us a little bit. I feel like I need a little more prep time.
Yeah, there was definitely some different things that we weren't thinking were going to be in there. So that was a surprise to me.
Yeah. So I'm like, let's just do a quick take. That way, it'll be good. So yeah, let's start off with what were your impressions? Did you love it, hate it? What do you think?
I really liked it. I thought it was great. It was a good storyline. Had a little bit of classic Buzz themes in it throughout the movie. Are we going to do spoiler alerts for this thing, or?
Oh yeah, like all quick takes, major spoiler alerts. I don't feel as bad on this one.
No.
Thor was brand new when I did it, so I was like, warning. This one's been out a little bit longer. It'll a week or two before this publishes, so it might even be out of theaters and streaming at that point. So if you haven't seen it yet, stop watching. If you care, go watch it and then come back for this.
Yeah, definitely.
So.
I think it was really cool to have some of the classic Buzz Lightyear things in it. Some phraseology. The ship was in at the end of it. That was really neat.
The one with the broken wing, the cardboard box he came in. I was like, that's the ship!
Yeah,
like, I know, that's so cool.
That was really cool.
Yeah, there was lots of little things. I also... Okay, so the biggest problem with the movie is like, okay, so it even opens up and it says, in 1995, which I thought it was 94, but 1995 is like the whole thing, like Andy went and saw the movie, this is that movie. And so the biggest problem with that is it's been a long time since then, so there's no way that movie was anything like what he would have watched in 95. And it's almost like they knew it, and they're like, okay, it's kind of suspension of disbelief, but let's throw some nods to it.
Right.
And so they did. Like, did you notice that his super high-tech AI thing was like cassette 8-track like he'd have to blow on it to get...
I noticed that, and some of the tech inside the movie reminded me of some of Wall-E's tech. I don't know if you noticed that or not.
I didn't make the Wall-E connection, but there was several things where they clearly were like, okay, even though it's super advanced technology, let's try to make it kind of 90s sci-fi.
Yeah.
So there was that. There was a couple of things I noticed. I think I can't remember what it was. There was some sort of graphics and they were doing. I think it was like the old school graphics on the displays that looked like a 90s, that green computer terminal.
Green, yeah.
So they were definitely like, okay, wink, wink. We know that there's no way, like, this is really the movie Andy saw in 95. But here's a couple. Here's a cookie for just not saying anything.
Exactly. Just don't talk about it.
Yeah. So that's the first thing we did is talk about it.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that they did that, right? Because it was like, okay, we get it. Here you go, and it was kind of fun. And like you said, all the little homages. I like some of the things they did, like with the sandwich, how it's like, because it'd been like 100 years, so like, let's mix some stuff up and try to change, just to throw in like, in kind of slower moments to try to like give you something, like your brain something to just chew on a little bit. No pun intended. Yeah.
Of the time frame, yeah.
So I thought that was cool. I mean, let's go with like, what's your favorite part or most impressive part, or what do you think would be your? I know we literally just saw it like 20 minutes ago, so we haven't even processed. I'm sure if we did this in a week, we'd have a different answer.
Right.
But like before even processing, like, what do you think was your favorite part?
I think my favorite part for me was finding out who Zurg really was. That was a shocker to me. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. We're definitely gonna come back and talk about that for sure. Yeah, because that was very different than the Toy Story movies.
Absolutely.
Though, they even made a joke about it because it's like, Dad?
Yeah.
So they even like, because that was like what, Toy Story like 3 or 4, where they like showed that it was his father, which was just a play on Star Wars.
Right. I'm your father.
So then they did the play on Star Wars, right? Well, I mean, yeah, I'm sure you know, like, it's just the fact that it was him from the future, or an alternate.
Yeah.
See, like, now that they own Marvel, they've got to throw in that Marvel multiverse stuff in there.
Correct.
So, yeah, that was interesting. I don't know, my favorite part, I don't know if it was a specific part, but I definitely liked all the Zurg tech stuff. Both seeing the Zurg robot, all the little robots. I really like seeing all that kind of stuff, and I thought it was interesting, like that original robot that they fought. I like how they made him like almost like he became self-aware, where it was like, I'm gonna keep going with my mission. So all the other ones at that point were like idiot bots, but for somehow he turned into like, I'm gonna keep at it and keep going.
Yeah.
And he's slowly like losing body parts and accumulating weapons sticking out of him, and he just was like, I'm gonna keep going.
I had hope for him.
Yeah, I know. It's like you're almost rooting for the bad guy at that point. But was it just me, or did you feel like Buzz could not catch a break in this movie?
That was the thing. It was like he was always 3 steps behind.
Yeah, like no matter what he did,
just 3 steps, and it's kind of like life sometimes in a sense. Yeah. Sometimes you can't catch a break.
Yeah, and it was very much just like, no matter what he did, he just never got further. It's like the closer he got to his goal, the bigger the obstacle was.
But it kind of, to me, it kind of correlated with his time too, because he was so far, he had kind of been paused in time.
Yeah.
So that to me, it's kind of correlating with that a little bit in a sense.
Like, because he just could never quite catch up.
Right, to where he was. He was so far behind in his mindset.
Yeah.
Where his time frame was, and everybody else is so far ahead in the time frame.
Yeah, so not like a literal, but like almost like a play on that. Where
right,
like
that's what I feel like it was.
He was ahead in time, and so he as a character was behind.
Trying to catch up.
That makes sense. I didn't pick up on that. That's good writing right there when they do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Speaking of good writing, something I thought was bad writing was just the whole idea. Like, and I don't know why no one's talked about this. But, like, in everything I've heard, the reviews and everything have been like, there's, like, a homosexual couple, we got a boycott, all this kind of stuff, which is honestly probably, like, the main reason. I was like, well, there's a bunch of attention. Let's go see it and do an episode. But to me, like, that wasn't even, like, the big deal of the movie. To me, the big deal of the movie was I'll rephrase what you said, but essentially the emasculating of Buzz. And it seemed like the theme of the movie was like, hey, stop trying. You're never going to get anywhere by trying. Just give up and accept mediocrity, and you'll be more happy once you accept mediocrity. And like every time Buzz tried to strive for something, he either physically got further away from his goal, it blew up in his face, he upset everyone. Like anytime he tried to pull them up and like, hey, let's make you better. Like this is life or death. Let's go. They're like, oh, you're not supposed to tell us to do better. You're supposed to tell us it was okay that we screwed up. And I'm like, did you not see those alien bugs trying to eat your face? Like,
and it was almost like the supporting cast was trying to pull him down.
Yes. And normally these kind of movies, like, they took the classic movie trope where it's like action hero type. They even set it up. I don't like rookies. Yeah. And then he gets a group of like pre-rookies, and they're just, I mean, I guess trigger warning. They're losers, right? Like the granddaughter wasn't. She was just green. Yeah. She had no experience. The other ones were kind of losers, right? In that sense, they kept. I mean, how many times can you accidentally hit a button that's going to like literally mess up everything?
Like the definition of accident prone.
Yeah, it's like Amelia Bedelia, but as a guy in space. And so it's like they gave him this kind of like worthless crew. Like I said, like I'm sure in 10 years the girl would be amazing, all that kind of stuff.
Because you could see her leadership ability.
Yeah, even by the end of the movie, she was better.
Yeah.
But instead of it being that classic movie where like Gridiron or any of these sports or Sister Act with Whoopi Goldberg, any of these movies where it's like ragtag group of misfits, and then they like throughout this movie, yes, the type A person does learn not to lower their standard, but learn to accept that there's multiple ways to get to the finish line. Hey, we can. It doesn't have to be like, hey, we can do this. I mean, like Mighty Ducks. That's exactly the idea of Mighty Ducks, right? Well, instead they flipped it, and it's like, hey, so what if instead of they became a great hockey team, or they went and won the singing competition, or they went and won the football championship? What if the coach just decided that winning wasn't that important, and it was all just about hanging out in the hallways at school, and they just decided, hey, you're now in charge of the practice. We're not even going to play games. We're just going to have practice. Like, that'd be a terrible ending for a movie, but that's basically what they did.
That was the vibe and kind of the message they were pushing for that.
Yeah.
In that situation. And that's what was surprising to me because, going from the 95 version to now, and seeing it, and I understand that this is the movie of what Buzz is supposed to be. But they just didn't correlate. They didn't come together, in my opinion.
No, and it definitely did feel... And I remember before I went into it, like, people are freaking out, like, you can't do that to Buzz. And I'm like, well, first off, I don't think they did anything to Buzz. I think it was more in the movie. It's like, which is true. And then so I was like, but secondly, this isn't Buzz Lightyear the toy. This is the movie that the toy was based on. So anything they did to this Buzz doesn't really have a correlation to that Buzz, just because like it was like as if you like I could go and buy a Batman toy, and my little Batman toy comes alive at night and has some crazy personality. Right. Has nothing to do with the movie necessarily. So I was like, I remember being confused, like, why is everyone getting mad? Because this ruins Toy Story. I'm like, it really doesn't.
It doesn't ruin it, but it just gives you more perspective of maybe where Buzz came from and how the personalities are different because they're supposed to be different entities.
And in that sense, it was almost like a retelling of Buzz and Woody, except again at the end of it, instead of like accomplishing their goal and getting home, it was like, let's just live at the toy barn. Let's just live at Sid's backyard. Let's just live in the Pizza Planet. Like that was essentially like if they made Toy Story, but they never got back to Andy. That's essentially like right. That's basically what happened. I didn't think about that until we were talking about it. I will say, though, one complaint that I heard a lot of people say, which I actually think was unfounded after watching it. A lot of people complain, it's not Tim Allen. I think Chris Evans did a fantastic job of sounding like Buzz Lightyear. Not mimicking him, but, like, I feel like within the first, like, less than 10 minutes, I was just like, that's Buzz Lightyear. Like, I didn't feel like, how good is he copying Tim Allen? In the beginning, I feel like maybe he did a little bit just to, like, ease us into it. And then all of a sudden, like, I'm like halfway through the movie, I'm like, it hasn't bothered me at all that this isn't Buzz. This is Buzz Lightyear.
Yeah, he owned the character. He did, and that I thought that was impressive, and that complements his ability to vocalize and to act in a sense. I mean, but yeah, he did a great job with encompassing that character, and there was essence of Buzz Lightyear in there with his voice. Yeah. I mean, so he was emulating it a little bit, but
I feel like it would be comparable to how Ewan McGregor like watched and studied Sir Alec Guinness for Obi-Wan Kenobi, where he wasn't like impersonating him, but he was becoming him. And I know in interviews he said like that's not something he could just turn on. It took months, and so like he did it the first time, and he hadn't done Star Wars forever. So I know that when they redid the Obi-Wan series, that is a process. It took him, I think, I don't remember if it was weeks or months, but it took him some time. He had to go back and get back in that mind space. He had to go back and watch footage again and get the mannerisms and get the accent and stuff down. And I feel like Chris must have done the same thing to kind of, but then he also made it his own. Right. It wasn't. There's a difference between. Have you seen the latest Castlevania or Transylvania?
Oh yeah.
That guy, because that wasn't Adam Sandler.
No, it wasn't.
But he literally just like mimicked him, right? And so where it sounded like 97% like it was Adam Sandler. There's every now and then you could tell. At least I could because we grew up watching Adam Sandler movies since we were kids. Well, maybe not kids because they were inappropriate. Once we were old enough to watch movies without our parents' permission, Happy Madison or Happy Gilmore,
yeah.
and all those, right?
Yeah.
Billy Madison. So like I could tell in certain parts, but ultimately he just like mimicked or did impersonation. There you go. He did a Adam Sandler impersonation, and I don't feel like this was a Tim Allen impersonation.
No.
Like you said, he really owned it. And I feel like he could go on and like I feel like even if they did it in the Toy Story, and Tim Allen wasn't available, I feel like he could do it, and it would vary. Other than like the uproar in the beginning, I feel like he could really take it over, and most people wouldn't even know
and
kids wouldn't even know the difference.
The best part was you didn't think it was Captain America talking.
No.
So that he completely separated that, and you felt like it was just that's like your character. You didn't feel like it was anything else but that.
I was only aware that it was Chris Evans for about 30, 40 seconds in the very beginning when he first started talking, and I literally was judging it. I was like, how? Oh yeah, I can tell it's Chris Evans. But then like after like those like first not even minute, then I was just gone. It was just Buzz Lightyear. I wasn't even paying attention to that anymore. So, okay, well maybe let's go with least favorite thing in the movie.
Least favorite thing. I think the dialogue sometimes was too drawn out, like trying to explain everything.
Okay.
I think for children specifically, I think they'd have a hard time, maybe like 11 and below, they have a really hard get bored in some parts of the movie. That's what I didn't like sometimes because I'm thinking of my kids, and I'm a big kid myself, kind of like so. But in some parts of it did draw out. I appreciate it as an adult, but I'm not quite sure a kid would appreciate that.
And that's an interesting point. I would love to see like a commentary by the writers or something because I would almost feel like I wouldn't be surprised. Let me put it that way. I wouldn't be surprised if they said this isn't a kids movie. This is a movie for like our age, kids who grew up watching it. I feel like it was really targeted more towards us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there was even things, and I don't know, maybe it's just, but there's a lot of little things where I'm like, I don't think that should be in a kids movie. Like even some language, even the trailers they played. Like some of the trailers, I'm like, that's not an appropriate trailer to play before a kids movie. And I'm like, I don't know if this is a kids movie. I feel like this was like more for like our generation, so that okay, fine, maybe watch with our kids. Because then I feel like you said that some of those slow periods, I feel like that's the time to like nudge them and be like, that's the thing from you gotta they're like, oh yeah, Dad, okay. Like I feel like, you know what I mean? Like it's more of a movie for our generation to take their kids to rather than a kids movie.
And it'd be a good way to connect with your child through that.
But it was definitely fun. I told you on the way there, I was worried. I said it's like 50-50, I think. Because everyone was saying like, oh, it's not just like the homosexual agenda. It's just a bad movie.
It's a bad movie, yeah.
But it wasn't.
I didn't think it was a bad movie. I thought it was a really good movie. It was a lot of fun to watch. I enjoyed it.
I mean, I don't think it was a home run. Like
no,
I wouldn't give it an
run.
A, but I would say B, maybe B+. Like it was fun.
It was B+, I think. It was good. The storyline, like I said, dragged a little bit, but other than that, it was a fun movie.
Yeah, like it almost is like if they just made one more draft of the script, right? Like if they just like polished it a little bit more, did some test screens maybe, and we're like, it's lagging here.
It felt a little bit. It felt like they rushed it a little bit in some parts of it.
Oh, you know what? I think it was some of those scenes you're talking about, like when they're sitting around eating the sandwich.
Right.
Some of those scenes, it almost felt a little bit like
a filler,
like a TV show, like Community, the college show, or even The Office, but not as funny. Like where there's too many. Like it's life and death. We have evil robots after us. We have our entire civilization is locked down. All these things we have to do. But let's sit around and debate on how a sandwich should be made, which was funny.
It was funny.
But it was probably like it's twice as long as it needed to be. Like how many times did they have to say, bread, meat, bread? What? Bread, meat, bread? Like they brought it up like 3-4 times. Like we all get it the first time. Like because we're saying the same thing about meat, bread.
Yeah.
Meat. Is this like a weird Big Mac? Like what's going on?
I just thought of this while you're talking about that. One of the throwbacks though in the film. This is another spoiler alert. But do you remember the part in Toy Story where they had the cones and they're crossing the street?
Yes! That's what those cones were!
The cone traps, yes.
Yeah, I was like, what is this? I'm like, this is the weirdest. And I'm like, to me, I was thinking of like, was it Get Smart or Inspector Gadget where they had like the cone of silence or whatever?
Yeah.
And they they redid it with Steve Carell, that movie. I'm like, it's like the cone of silence, but they're stuck in it? Like, it's kind of weird. But there were like a lot of, like, that was another scene where it was very much like, they're all in one cone. He's
Yes.
like, I can't let go of my alpha male. I got to save you. I can't join with the group. And that tension, that was another one of those where they were like trying to strip him of some of that.
Yeah.
And the hard thing is, to some of it, an extent, some of that is necessary, right? We don't just need, like, not everyone can be like some special ops sniper living out for, like, you do need troops who can work together.
Absolutely.
And, like, you need the army troops. You need all this thing. Not everyone can be a Lone Ranger special wolf or special force lone wolf character. But Buzz is that.
He is that.
And it really was like they punished him for being who he was and made him change by the end.
Yeah. And I could see that they were trying to do that, one team, one fight integration thing, but the way they dismantled it didn't work. It didn't work for me.
And I love the idea that they made it work, because I love the idea of, like, I'm a big believer in anyone can, maybe not accomplish anything. Like, I don't think that, like, if you're in a wheelchair, that you're probably the most likely to, like, defend all of humanity from aliens. And I don't know, maybe if you get in a mech warrior and that's my thing though. Like, I do like that. Oh, I'm paralyzed from the waist down. How am I going to save? I found a mech warrior, and now I'm can walk. And I say so that I do like that idea of people figuring out ways around it,
Find their strengths,
and just using sheer determination to overcome something. And so I kind of like that they did, but the part I didn't like as much is, like, at the end where he's like, oh, we want you to start a whole new program. It's literally the survival of our species.
Yes.
You can handpick the best of the best. And he's like, no, I'm going to pick these guys just because we had an adventure together.
Right.
Like, how many times would the movie have been, there was like a 20-minute moment where the movie would have been over, a 30-minute, a 40-minute, and his team kept screwing it up.
Yeah.
And he would have been better off. And typically in these kind of movies, they show it to where, like, he keeps trying to be on his own, and he can't without the team. And there was a couple times that happened, but more often than not, they were holding him back, and he had to save them, and he just had to learn the lesson that, well, that's what community means. Like, It's okay that we're screwing up, but you have to still include us.
Yeah.
And that did feel a little bit like it was being kind of shoved down our throats a little bit, as like, and here's the thing, like, and that's where it's hard, because there are times, like, if a group of you working in, like a fast food or at a college or any of these normal environments, there's a lot of that is true and good, but again, not in the military, like.
Right, exactly. I mean, and you can put that with your spouse. You need I need my wife to help me through life sometimes. Okay, we're a team. I need my wife to help me raise my children. But we pick our team, or should we say, someone else helps pick our team.
Or even in situations where they get thrown in together,
right?
They form a new team because they were individuals, right? Oh, it's Buzz, and it's this one girl who has some potential, and this person, and then they form a new team. And in this one, with the exception of her, like, they're the only so the granddaughter had some character growth.
Yes.
More like skill growth, honestly, than character growth. Buzz Lightyear had reverse character growth, and then the other two team members never grew at all. So they never became a better version of a team. They just accepted their suckiness.
Well, they kind of accepted their flaws in a sense, and didn't try to build on them.
Yeah, and it's again, I feel like it's a tricky line, because in one sense, like, the first step of getting better is admitting that, but then you do go on and get better. You don't just say, we're going to build the entire defense of this entire space sector all off of the ideas of it's okay to just be who we are. Like, no, like, go through boot camp, finish that training that you never
improve
got through.
yourself.
So, I did like a lot of the quirky stuff. Like, it made no sense, and it was stupid. But, like, the vines randomly pulling people away, like, for no reason at all.
Unexpected, yeah, that's
like,
kind of funny.
Just like the vines are just pulling people away. That was pretty funny. I really felt for him, like, when he was watching that hologram. Actually, not even for him. I felt for her.
Yeah.
Like, I really could picture myself in her situation. For him, it's just like a normal tragedy, right? Like, it's horrible. Yeah. Her, though, is like heartbreaking. Like, for her, I felt like that would be so gut-wrenching to be like, you're gonna be back in a couple years, I'm not, that whole, like, and her talking and, like, saying goodbye. Like, yes, not to minimize the trauma on him, but for her, I just felt like that must have been horrible.
Well, and she was, constantly worrying about him as a friend, wanting him to succeed, knowing that he had the misery of feeling like he created this whole problem, and she was helpless to help him, And
I kept waiting for them to go back on that, and I never felt like they really identified we had to infer what his screw up was.
Right.
Was it that he was supposed to take help from the cadet, the rookie, and if they both were pulling up on the throttle, they would have made it? Was it that he should have cut the engines and re-landed? Because wouldn't the planet have swallowed them? Like, what was... So the whole movie is basically predicated on him undoing his mistake, but they didn't really give us a clear-cut version of what the mistake was.
Right, yeah.
And then we were kind of led to believe it's that he doesn't accept help, but I felt like they could have done a much better job, because I don't feel like that rookie could have even done a whole lot. To me, like, that would have been better if the rookie was in the seat, strapping in. He's like, no, I've got this, and, like, hit this thing, and, like, the rookie, like you know, when he could have just said, grab the thing and help. Like, it wasn't super clear. Like, to me, it didn't look like he did anything wrong. It looked like he did the best he could in that situation. And anyone else other than Buzz Lightyear, they would all be dead. It would have crashed into the side of the mountain, and they'd all be dead. He saved all their lives, but somehow that was a mistake, his mistake. So I don't feel like that was really clear. And then I feel like there was a point where, like, I feel like there must have been a draft where it was supposed to show the character growth, because later on with Zurg, he does hit the eject button, like, compared to before, like, when he didn't want to hit eject. So I'm like, was that supposed to be character growth? Because it was just so downplayed. I'm like, I feel like there was a lesson there that they wanted us to get, but I don't feel like they really put it out there that well.
Well, there was never a resolution to certain aspects of the movie too. You just see that.
Yeah.
That's what bothered me a little bit. It was like you wanted to see more of, you know, how did he overcome the situation, and it was more just to accept the situation. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really see an overcome of that in some areas.
Yeah, no, for sure. So that part was kind of weird, but going into it with, like, expecting it was probably not going to be great, I think basically going into it with a very low bar, I think made it way better for us.
Yeah, I think so. I think I just was going, this is throwing money in the wind.
Yeah,
I didn't feel like it was that.
I honestly, the only reason I went to see it was for the episode. Like, there's no way, because I'm thinking, like, I was talking to Brandy about this the other day. I'm like, you know, like, I haven't bought comics in probably 20 years, but I just the other day I went and got some for an episode, and I was like, you know what's really great about the show is normally, like, the worst part about buying comics for me is the stress of, is it going to be good? And like, if I buy a comic that
I want to waste the money.
No, exactly, because I remember being like 15 years old and I'd buy it and I'd get home and I'd read it and I'm like, well, that wasn't that good, but I just spent $3 on it. Like, I should have gotten the other one I almost got instead. And I'm like, what's great is with the show, it doesn't have to be good. It just has to be good content. Yeah. So like, I can read a comic and be like, well, that kind of sucked, but it's going to make a great episode. So that was kind of like my mentality is like, I don't know if this movie's going to be any good, but the snacks are going to be good. It's going to be good to hang out, and it's going to be a good episode. Yes. Regardless. And then I was surprised that the movie, like, I'm expecting the movie to be like a 43, and I felt like it was like I don't know, like an 80, a 79, 80, 81, maybe even 83. Like, it was way better than I thought.
Yeah, it was a lot better than we thought it was going to be.
And honestly, with some basic editing, I feel like it could even go up more. It was already short, though.
It was short.
So I wonder if they already did that.
It was short. And, I mean, obviously they spent the money on the effects because, as I was telling you earlier, Buzz's hair would wave. I mean, it was just, it was very,
it was a $200 million movie.
Very different. You could see the sweat on him, and it looked realistic as a cartoon. It just looked realistic. So I appreciated the graphics in it because it was definitely not your Toy Story graphics.
Oh, no, for sure. The one thing that it took me about half the movie to catch on to, but then I think it was once his hair had been out for a while. Like, I'm like, there's no version of human ever that is gonna have that square of a jaw of a forehead and that round of a jaw. Like, I'm looking at him and like, he's got like a very like attractive forehead, eyebrows, eyes, cheekbones, and then it turns into like a potato. And I know they have to match the toy, but I'm like, that should be squared off. Like, everything else about him, his posture, his chest, everything is like, that should have been a very squared off jaw. They basically gave him the physique of like a buff Batman. And then they gave him this Peter Griffin chin.
Yes, I was about to say, yeah. Reminiscent Family Guy chin, kind of like almost, yeah.
So that was, it took me like half the movie, but I'm like, there's something not right there. I'm like, oh, it's his face. They're half of his face.
Yeah. It was definitely more accentuated than the original Toy Story.
And I don't know if it was more accentuated or if it was more prominent because the rest of his head was normal. Versus in the Toy Story movie, I feel like his entire head was like, and it didn't. I didn't catch it when he had his when it was his Buzz Lightyear head. But when he took the thing off and it was his hair, then that's when I started noticing it.
Yeah.
I started thinking like, there's some anatomy stuff not working here that they just had to match to the toy.
And you saw it more when you saw the older Buzz too. You saw more of the features too there as well.
Yeah, I think they did a good job. Like, he definitely looked like an old man that used to be buff.
He did. He did.
Like, you look at him, I'm like, wow, he clearly has a strong frame, but you can
still
see.
Looks frail.
But even like his chest was like, it was a little saggy. Like he used to have like big pecs, and now a little bit of man boobs, right? Like they did a really good job of like, this is what a bodybuilder is gonna look like when he's old.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was looking at that, I'm like, that was really good. Whoever did that character design
did a really good job.
Really good job. Yeah. But yeah, so that part was interesting. I think maybe we can end on that, is the whole it being Zurg, which I don't know, I feel like in some way is wrong for Zurg to be Buzz.
I know. It just didn't compute with me. I was like, no, this cannot be Buzz. It just didn't make sense. But I mean, there's a twist for you though.
Yeah. And to me, it just added to the whole. I think it caused some Toy Story continuity errors, because when like they find out that it's his father and all of that, and they're all shocked, like, well, you would have all known from the movie that it's actually Buzz. I'm like, that's not his dad, that's him from an alternate reality.
Yes.
So I feel like that caused a little bit of a continuity error.
Yeah.
But they just decided to go with it and it matched up so nicely with all the Marvel stuff going on right now. So everyone's in the multiverse stuff. They did a unique spin on it. They brought in some time travel. They didn't just call it multiple dimension. No. It's essentially what they did, but they did it with time travel.
Exactly.
So I think it was unique how they did it. I like the character. Like, to me, I feel like the character, like if you then took that movie, made it live action, I feel like old Buzz would have to be played by Charlton Heston. He's perfect for that role, right?
That'll be spot on.
It was like like they're like, what would it look like if Buzz Lightyear? Oh, let's make him look like just do a Pixar version of Charlton Heston. Right?
Basically, that's what.
Yeah, that's really close. We just have a couple tweaks and we're good to go. That's like 90% there.
Yep, I agree.
So yeah, he's basically like, old man Buzz, Charlton Heston. But the thing I didn't like about it, and I'm going back, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here, but it's like, it to me, it just illustrated like it was almost like this like anti-toxic masculinity. Like, if you keep striving and you're trying to be the best version of yourself, you're going to turn into this villain. You're going to be a bad guy. People who try too hard and try to actually improve themselves and accomplish the mission no matter what, turn into villains. And I really felt like they were beating us over the head. So I feel like I'm kind of belaboring the point, but I felt like they did. So it gives me freedom in my show then to do it too.
There was definitely some hyper focus on that.
Yeah, and that was like, this is the consequence of not accepting mediocrity. You have to accept mediocrity, otherwise you're going to turn into the villain. And I didn't like that.
No, I don't either.
As someone who gets up every day and tries to improve himself, and I ascribe to the Ed Milet thing of like, every year you try to be like a different person than last year. And if you're the same person one year as you were the year before, you failed that year. You want to always be a new version of yourself, and you're always chasing that. I was like, I don't really like that. They're basically telling me, so like I ran 7 miles yesterday, right? I'm like, oh, so what you're saying is if I keep on this path, I'm going to turn into a bad guy? That's essentially what you're telling me. It's like, slow your roll, stop trying to improve, stop trying to be so whatever, don't work that hard. I don't like that. So, all right, any last words or last words, like I'm going to take you out back and shoot you or something, but like any final thoughts? There we go. That's the phrase I was looking for.
Definitely a good movie. Not sure I'm taking my kids to see it yet or not, but
yeah, it's definitely worth, if you're on the fence of like, am I going to completely boycott this? When it drops, I'm assuming to Disney Plus in like a week or two, unless it just, some of those things bother you so much. Like, I honestly feel like my son, it was like, oh, they're running Buzz, I don't want to see it. I'm like, dude, there's one part where you just get up and go to the bathroom during that part.
And I think some parts of it will be over some kids' heads, younger kids' heads.
I think a lot.
I think if you have older children, they're obviously going to grasp onto it. But it's our job to raise them right. I mean, and to teach them.
Yeah, I don't think this is the movie that you just like have your 5-year-old in his room streaming every single night before bed. I think this is the movie that you watch as a family.
Yes.
And then at the end of it, you have a little family devotion and explain this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's actually, it's funny because that's actually one of my notes I have in here. as I literally wrote down as one of my notes, is Disney basically just gave us a $200 million conversation starter.
Yep.
Like, use it. And so I do think that would be the thing, is like, watch this with, now if you're completely against whatever, fine, skip it, whatever. But if you're like, I really want to see it, but I'm afraid of whatever, watch it with your family. Know that there is a little bit of a montage sequence when he keeps going into space and coming back that you may choose to fast forward or whatever. But that's really the what everyone's complaining about, is it's like a 3 minute, 2.5, 3 minute sequence. There are other references, but like way less than other things that I'm sure you've watched. So that's that one little piece. I don't know. I honestly don't know. Not to say it was fine, but I don't know why it caught so much attention and why it caused such.
It was so. I felt like it was in your face, but vague at the same time. It was. I think because you were looking for it.
Yeah, that's the reason to me, is because
we.
But who was the first person to make us look for it? Like, I feel
think Disney did, or Pixar.
I guess, because I feel like I've literally seen other Disney, DreamWorks, Pixar movies that had things just as blatant or worse that no one was boycotting, no one was talking about. So why this movie? Again, not to say it was not a big deal, but just as it wasn't what all the hype was.
Right, and that's as a parent, do your duty. You know, if you view the movie first, you want your children to see it, and then you go from there from your point of view and what you want to do. That's your choice. I mean, that's what it boils down to, right?
Yeah. And my thing is, like, if your kids are in public school and you're not talking to them about this stuff, but then you don't let them see this movie, that's almost hypocritical to me, because they're getting way more at school than the little scene in this movie.
Yes, and I think public school creates more of a conversation talker than a movie does.
Next week on Geek Church, public school. Right, a 329 episode series.
Woo.
So, yeah, I mean, overall, so I did enjoy it. I enjoyed going and seeing it. Thank you for going with me. It was a lot of fun. I'll talk to my wife about it, but like, I don't have a problem. I'll probably do what I said. We'll probably watch it as a family, and then we'll just have some conversations at the end. I definitely don't want my 6-year-old. So this is not one he's going to be allowed to just put on every night to go to sleep to, because I do feel like that really starts to make, but like to watch it just so they see it, they know it. If anything, like I said, it's going to go into a great conversation at the end where we can have like literally almost like a family devotional kind of conversation. It's going to even equip them that much more. So I wouldn't necessarily run away from it. I would just be prepared to do some parenting, some work after
Absolutely.
it. So
don't be afraid to do the work. We got to.
Yeah. There was nothing like visually explicit as far as like it wasn't nudity. There wasn't
No.
They were in bed together. You could see one part where it looked like they at one point would have kissed, and that was cut out.
That was cut out.
And I heard that there was, and I could see where that was supposed to be, where instead they just kind of looked at each other or whatever. Like you could see like there's definitely a deleted scene of them kissing right there. Yeah. But even that, it wouldn't have been like a sexual. It wasn't like it was two, at this point, slightly older women who had had a grown kid. So there was nothing. What I'm trying to say is that it wasn't, even though it was romantic, it wasn't like sexual, right? It wasn't like a lot of the movies. I feel like they are kind of slipping in some sexual stuff with some of the characters. These 12-year-old characters, there's sexual situations. Yes. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like they were trying to like sexualize the children. No. It was just they were just trying to normalize, love is love, basically, is essentially what they were doing. So yeah, make your decision based off of that. With that, I think that's it. Anything else you want to say?
To infinity
and beyond.